Hi, hello, welcome, 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 welcome. Hi, hello. Come on to the Hope More page. I'm telling you, we're going to have an amazing discussion today about things that actually are so sad, but they're so honest and true that's happening all around us. So I'm so excited to have the special guest we have today. But before I go there, I just want to ask that everyone would just please share, share, share. This is going to be the first part of a three-part series dealing with escaping violence. Today, we're going to talk about legal intervention. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about spiritual intervention. And on Thursday, we're going to deal with physical intervention or safety planning. So I'm very, very excited to discuss this, but I'm excited much like an emergency makes you excited, right? When you're in a car accident, or no, forget that. When you pass by a horrific car accident, your adrenaline starts pumping. You're looking to the side before an ambulance gets there or a police car get there. You're trying to figure out what and if you can play a part in this horrific accident. I remember as a child, we were on family vacation and there was a horrific accident in a station wagon. And I'm just always so proud of my dad because to me, he's fearless. But the children had been thrown all over the roads, some of which had already demised. I remember my mom telling me to get my head down, but my mom and my dad were talking amongst each other. My dad got out the car after pulling over. He went and he helped pull some people out. He helped do certain things. And I think he helped save lives because the car ended up catching on fire, but there were some people who were passed away. But either way, I love the fact that my dad did not just watch something happen that was an emergency, and he may not have been trained as a fire person. And yes, maybe his unique skills as a former Vietnam soldier made him prepared for carnage and death and jumping into action. But while he was doing that, my mother was acting in a different way. She was protecting me from being further traumatized. She told me to stay still. She got out and she tried to comfort. And there were some of the children who died. So we have these emergencies happening all around us, and we can feel so helpless to intervene. But I'm hoping that what this show does is not exploit. And I'm hoping that this show does in no way seem to show any disrespect, especially because it is after or tagged along with a very tragic event that recently happened in my quaint hometown of Perry, Florida last Friday. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But unfortunately, domestic violence was the cause of a woman and a man losing their life on last Friday. And unfortunately, it's becoming more commonplace than we ever want to admit. It's becoming way more commonplace than we ever want to admit, but it's something that we need to deal with, and it's something that we need to talk about. So everybody, I got my phone too. I need you to go and share this, start a watch party. I'm really praying that God will give us some insight that can help save lives. I'm not pretending to know all the answers, and God knows I'm not pretending to even have all the legal perspectives of what's going on and how we can help. But I know one thing, you'll know more information after your time here than before. And if you don't need it, hopefully someone who needs it, you get to talk to, okay? So I have a special guest today. She has been such a great advocate for victims here in the Big Bend area. I'll let her introduce what she does and how she does things. But for those of you who don't know, a huge part of what I do as a lawyer are injunctions. Other people call them restraining orders. And I assist people who are victims of domestic violence, stalking, dating violence, and sexual violence to file civil injunctions to protect them from the abuser, to protect them from the stalker, to protect them from the person who sexually violated them, to protect them from the person they're dating. Unlike a call to the police, this is not a criminal action. The injunctions I work on are civil in nature. Only if you violate them, or especially in a horrendous way, could they turn into a criminal matter. But it's a way for people both to create a paper trail and something that's legally recognized and actionable by the police, that this person cannot come near you. This person cannot come to your house. This person cannot call you. This person is not supposed to be Facebooking you. And it's often a great protection, especially for those who may feel like they need not only protection for themselves, but their children in a way that is immediate. Okay, so that's what I do as an injunction attorney. I work with the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence, who's in a lot of changes, but I officially still, that is the organization that I work with. And as a part of my job, I work with counties here in Taylor, Madison, Jefferson County. I've also brought on some counties who are just a heartbeat for me, Lafayette County, and actually I've done a lot of Leon County cases because they're overrun with so many cases and so many needs, and people often are left going to court by themselves. So that's what I do. And in doing this, I get to meet with a lot of amazing people. There are advocates who work for different agencies like state attorney's office, or here in Perry, Florida, Refuge House, which is also in Madison and Jefferson County. The advocates I work with, we are in the same office that do sexual violence counseling and domestic violence counseling. They're often my go-to people. But some of my greatest heroes are the advocates that work with Sheriff's Office. And that's how I met our next guest. Please welcome with me Miss Marie Rigdon. I hear you clapping all over the place. Yes. Hi, Marie.
Hey ho.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me. And I just want to say I feel so flattered. Thank you for all the kind words that you've said. I appreciate it.
Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. I've worked with a lot of different people, and Marie, you're one of my favorites to work for because you are passionate like me, and you hold steady even if you're dealing with your own life situations. And so when you give me a call, I could be on vacation, I could be chilling. I'm going to respond because you give 150% of yourself. So, Marie, could you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how are you involved with advocacy for victims?
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. Let's see. I love my job, as you very well said. I enjoy the people I get to work with. I love helping people. Little background on me. Um, I've been working at a sheriff's office for going on 15 years now. Um, I look at it as kind of a whole cycle. You know, there's the law enforcement aspect, there's my advocacy aspect, where, you know, part of my job is I get to be the voice for the voiceless, you know, or I try to be. That's what I try to do, is make sure, you know, they've already been victimized. So what better way to represent them than to try to see, you know, kind of what they want to see happen in their case fulfilled. Um, and then there's the aspect where, you know, years later, I get to meet people that were victimized in the past, you know, and I didn't get the opportunity to work with them. So I hear a lot of ways to improve and do things better for the future.
Yeah, Marie, I tell you, so as a victim advocate for a sheriff's office, when how are you made aware that people are in need of your assistance?
So a couple ways. One is I'm called out on scene for crisis response, um, or through referrals, or just generally people calling saying, "Hey, I need help." Usually when I am seeing that person, they are at the end of their rope. They have exhausted all efforts, all energy, all strength, and you know, I feel like that's then I need to step in and try to make things as seamless and easy as I can for this person.
Well, you know, one of the things that you assist people in doing is getting restraining orders, or as we know it, as injunctions. And that's how we intersect, because many times your clients may need that, even though they're probably, you've been notified probably because there's a criminal case or someone calling in the police or the sheriff's office. Many times what we do and work so well together in is filing injunctions. So let me tell our audience what injunctions are. I already shared with you that it's a legal petition requesting basically that someone be prohibited from being around you. Most of the time is within 500 feet. If you're in a vehicle, it's within 100 feet. If you have children, sometimes the children need protection. So you prohibit that person from coming onto their campus at school or your job. If you have places that you frequent, you can also add that. And it's usually what a wonderful protection it can be. When you file that petition, the court can determine three things, right? The court can determine whether or not they feel like you should be granted a temporary injunction. And I'll talk about how powerful that is immediately without any hearing, only from what you write on this petition. Secondly, they can determine if, well, you know what, I'm not going to give you an injunction. I'm going to give you a hearing date, right? They're like, okay, we're not going to give you this piece of paper to order the person away from you or out of your home, but we're going to give you a hearing to know more about it. And the third thing they can do is just outright not grant it, saying it's not enough probable cause. And that's often the part that makes us the most sad, because most of the time people are taking a great risk to come and say, I need help, right? So what we are dealing with, and why an injunction is such a powerful civil action, especially in the case of domestic violence, is that people can be removed from your home. They can be prevented and prohibited from coming in your doors, even if that person normally would have a right to possession, whether it's the husband or somebody's name on the mortgage or your adult child who lives with you. You don't have to go through the eviction process. For up to 15 days, they could be made and prevented from coming into your home, no further questions asked. So that's why it is such a powerful tool. And a lot of people who go forward, they have to deal with the consequences of that until we have a final hearing. And in cases, so I say that's a very powerful thing. You can't get anyone evicted that way. You know, and it does not require that the person have the police called on them. So if in a case where, say, and I do have male clients, a male client is being attacked by his live-in girlfriend, he can place in the petition what's happening, and the judge, based on even hearsay, right, because there's no testimony, it's all written, that the judge can say that this girlfriend has to get out and she cannot come back, even if the police can escort her to get the rest of her stuff. Until we have a final hearing, that person is protected in that way. So it's a very big protection. Stalking, dating, and sexual violence all have their own little nuances. But today we're going to probably focus, because of what's going on in our society, we're going to focus on domestic violence. Okay, we're going to focus on trying to get people information about filing. So I'm going to just go to where and how we got compelled to connect today, because there's a lot of things happening that unfortunately has come to my attention. Things that happened here in Perry, Florida, that I wasn't even clear was due to anything like domestic violence. So I'm about to show you, Marie, a picture, and I don't know if you've seen any pictures or just heard the report of what's been happening in Perry, Florida, but I wanted to show you. I'm sorry, this is the wrong. I wanted to show you.
Well, you know, statistically, 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic violence, and 1 in 4 men are victims of domestic violence or intimate partner violence.
Right.
So it is prevalent. And, you know, with the COVID virus, you know, it's possibly that it's even more prevalent. Everybody's being homebound, quarantined, not able to leave their home. There's not equal access to reporters that's medical doctors. They've got other stuff they've got going on. Kids aren't in school where it's being reported through the schools. So it's absolutely possible that this is more prevalent right now during this time than prior or even after.
Do you find yourself having more cases?
No, and that's the scary part.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. Because
Yeah.
it's not that it just stopped, It's not that the person has just turned over a new leaf. It's just, it's not being reported.
Yeah, I understand. Now, while Marie was talking, and I'm sorry I didn't have that better set up, I was showing a picture of a person who's been arrested recently. On Friday, this person allegedly ran his wife off the road, and she had a companion or a person in the car with her. He got out and then he basically executed them, and taking the life of them. And it just breaks my heart because it was done not only in such a terrible way, but it was done right in front of the U.S. Post Office in our small town. What's really interesting is that there is a memorial there now by the tree, and I was trying to make it a little bit better. But this particular situation, the person that it involved may have gotten wrong information. And so it really compelled me and it compelled Marie to connect. Marie contacted me Saturday saying, like, we have to do something. And I'm just, what I understand, and I'm being very, very careful because there's an investigation going on. And all the information I'm providing, I want it to be accurate. But I understand that this particular woman who was in Taylor County had recently told her husband that she wanted a divorce, and that one of the reasons why is because of domestic violence. She sought information about how to get a restraining order or how to get an injunction. And we believe she was misinformed. But one of the things that happened, although she worked in a different county, and although she reached out to her boss, she reached out to coworkers. In fact, I understand the man who was with her was a coworker who was trying to just, support her as she returned to Taylor County to try to get things settled and to go to the courthouse to get an injunction eventually. That never happened because she actually saw her husband, who then ran her off the road, and unfortunately then getting out of the car, or maybe not even getting out of the car, shooting through the car and killing both her and her coworker. So I only heard little bits and pieces about the situation. At first, I just heard that there was, I thought, an argument between strangers at a local dollar store or something that ended in what I thought was road rage. And what was really sad is that a few minutes before I got that call, I was heading to the post office. So it's amazing what could have just happened in a few seconds, how it could forever change someone's life. And then I found out that people were shot. And then I found out that people were murdered. And I was like, all over road rage. And it was on Saturday that I found out that it was actually attached to an issue of domestic violence. And that really hurt my heart because I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if she ever tried to get help. I wonder if she knew about the services of Refuge House here in Taylor County, if she knew about the injunction services that are provided through my office completely free because of a federal grant, despite income. I have clients who drive big cars and have businesses and clients who have nothing. And I just, a part of me pondered that. And then Marie reached out to me and was like, we need to try to help get it, make it more clear what people can do who need an injunction. And I noted that she emailed me on a Saturday. I didn't see it until Sunday, but Monday we connected, and then I found out it was even closer to home than I thought. I'm gonna let Marie continue what we shared yesterday
So
about how
you
close
know,
to home it was regarding the kind of services we give.
even though, it's such a tragic accident, we just need to make sure that the information that people are given and as us as service providers, what they receive is good information. We need to make sure that they know everything that's available out there to them. And if that means we need to change the way that information is put out there, then we need to do it. Um, because in this day and age, with everything, the best possible chance that we can give these victims so that they then become survivors, we need
Right,
to do it.
right. Well, I'm just going to share that one of the things that compelled us is that, like you've already mentioned, during COVID-19, actually, there's been an increase of domestic violence, but that does not necessarily translate to reporting, right? Now things are hidden. People are talking about schools reopening right now. And some of the pluses for that is that there are children who are being abused daily, who now abusers have been able to isolate their children, and there's no accountability because teachers are mandatory responders. Actually, in the state of Florida, everyone is a mandatory responder, but teachers, I mean, their livelihood will be snatched from them if they are aware of abuse and don't report it. So we have more clandestine ways to go about society where abuse is happening and we don't see it. And one of the reasons why it's not getting reported or people are not seeking services is because our courthouses are not open and available to the public like they have been in the past, right? So
Right.
even if you know that you can go to the clerk's office and get some information, and although the clerks are doing everything they can to be accessible in these very limited circumstances, people often it's a deterrent. You got to go up and talk to someone through something, or you just hear the courthouse is closed. Or like in the case of Taylor County, even though you can get an app and get something printed, the public library is closed. So if you don't have a printer and Google to research family forms for injunctions in Florida, and most people wouldn't even know that that's available online, you may feel already overwhelmed with your violence and overwhelmingly limited that there's anything you can do about it. And I know that that was
Well,
one of the things that we wanted to talk about.
and here's the thing. It takes every ounce, and I can tell you this from experience, it takes every ounce of energy and strength that you can muster just to get away from the violence. Okay? So you take someone who doesn't have a law degree, who's doing everything they can just to break free from the abuse, and you say, well, if you want it, you go figure out how to get it. That's not how that should be. We should have these forms readily available to everyone. Even me, the first few times I tried to navigate the Florida courts forms, I was lost. I'm like, where is this form at? How do I even start to find it? This needs to be at the forefront of every courthouse, every it just needs to be where anybody can access these forms and fill them out. And I don't know if that just means a new way of putting it out there, but I know for me, when I had to file my injunction, and this has been at least 10 years ago, I had to drive an hour away because
Wow.
I didn't know how to fill forms out. And the closest place that would help me was an hour drive. I drove an hour just to have help to fill out these forms. And it
Wow.
took the lady like all 15 minutes. She filled them out, handed them to me. I drove an hour for somebody to help me for 15 minutes
And how did you
because I
even
was
2 years ago find out about that person? How did you even 10 years ago find out about those who you could go to?
yellow book, the yellow book pages. You know, I had to look through it and find someone who can help me, someone who had small children going through a domestic violence situation. I had to find someone who was willing to help me, you know,
And
and
you had to have the forethought and the strength to balance everything and then do whatever it took to get help.
that's right. And, you know, I love that you are available to help these ladies and these men that are trying to flee violent situations. I love you and appreciate you so much for the work that you do, because you and I both know if you just were given an 800 number and said, well, just call them and ask for help, you would be lost. You'd be like, I don't want to sit on the phone for 30 minutes waiting for somebody to answer it, you know?
Yeah. No, it is very, very hard. And not only that, it gets very, very dangerous, right? When a
Right.
person is, especially in domestic violence, someone possibly lives with you and you're trying to figure out how you're going to do what you need to do, and maybe you can't trust your in-laws or your family. Your family may be saying, you know what, you just need to pray and don't talk back so much. So you're already trying to figure out who you can trust. And when we already know from statistics, when someone files for an injunction, actually the likelihood of danger increases greatly. So that's why so many people don't file, or when they file, they come back. We know that it takes often someone 6 to 10 times to actually leave an abuser. It is so deep. And one thing I I have had experience in since I've been here in Taylor County, because people know each other. When I was in Atlanta for 26 years practicing, and for 20, people didn't, I could file and go to court and never see my client ever again. But here in a small
Mm-hmm.
town, not only as an attorney do I see maybe the abuser or the person who we're saying is, was wrong or doing something, stalking. Not only do I see them, I see their family members if they came to court. And so a lot of people, because in Perry, unless you request, Taylor County, unless you request it, and the sunshine rule, unless you're a child or something very sensitive like sexual violence, is normally an open courtroom. So,
Yep.
people are like, I don't want people to know my business. I don't want people to know my business. So it could be even harder, I find, in rural, small communities for people to take the courage to step out there and say, I need to protect myself this way. Um, One of the things I wanted to talk about with legal intervention, because so much of what we do is hard to break down in a short discussion, but I really what compelled me to do this as a 3-part series is that I know is no easy answer. And I know getting a piece of paper from some judge saying you can't be around this person 500 feet is not going to stop a bullet. However, many times, at least at the beginning of a more expressive violence, it can delay and get you help so that you can escape violence in a safe way. You can escape violence in a safer way, and you created like this paper trail to give the police an understanding that this is not just you being upset with your baby daddy or you being upset with your girlfriend or your mama, because domestic violence can be your relatives, it can be someone who lives with you like a relative. That you're not just in a like little tussy and overreacting, that a judge has already looked at this information and said this person is in imminent harm and you need to act. I understand in the case from Friday that the confrontation and the argument didn't start on the road, it was in a store. Some of the things that people need to understand: if you have an injunction against someone, they If you're in a store and they walk in and your presence become known to them, according to the law, they have to walk out the store. If you go into the store after they walked in the store, how about they have to walk out the store? If you're in the store, you can call the police and the police can come in and intervene. And that's a very powerful thing because sometimes, especially when people are having issues of violence, there needs to be a cooling off. Maybe this man who attacked his wife, who saw her with a coworker, maybe he would have cooled down enough to think about his two children who will be left without a mother, or his life that now, no doubt, he's facing the ruination of it because murder normally is a life sentence. You know, he may have been able to calm down. So sometimes the paperwork again won't stop a bullet, but it'll slow down the issue. And
You know,
go
part
ahead.
of that, what I like to tell, part of that, what I like to tell um, the victims or survivors that I work with when we do these injunctions, don't wait for the second time they contact you. Don't wait on that first time that they try to contact you, whether it is by text messaging, Snapchat, smoke signals, I don't care. It's on that first time you need to contact the law and have them do a report or have them get that person in jail because they're going to push it and see just how far you're going to take it. And you know what? If you don't report on that first time and they try again and then they come closer, they actually come to the residence. You need to be reporting on that first instance of contact because it may be too late by the second or third.
Marie, you are speaking such truth. And it's sometimes hard for people to understand. Not only if you get an injunction to call on the first violation, because they're not caring what the police do or the court, but even in your relationship, I'm not saying if something happens that you always have to get an injunction because you know your family, you know dynamics that, and I'm not going to just say something like that, but the first sign of physical violence, you need to break away from that. If only to get away for a weekend to think, because I'm not saying that every act of violence is equated to running your wife down and shooting her, but I'm saying this, every act of violence could lead to that if it's not stopped. If people don't get help, if the person being abused don't find help, it is very serious. Let me tell you, when I was in college, I thought this one young lady was crazy, but now I see the significance because we have romantic movies like Gone with the Wind or different ideas that like a man who loves you, he'll manhandle you. You try to walk away, he'll grab you to bring you back, and society wants to swoon at that. But she said it so boldly, it forever made me think twice about the idea of being snatched back. She's like, this guy that she liked, and they were just going to a football game, and they were talking, and there was something going on, and she walked forward, and he grabbed her arm to bring her back. She said, that was my last time ever seeing him. I walked away, and I was like, wait a minute, you're overreacting. That wasn't abuse. He just grabbed you. He just grabbed you. And it was like, but you know what? I thought about that. And thank you for being vulnerable to share that 10 years ago you found yourself having an injunction. I was in a relationship with someone and they were upset with me. And we're driving down the middle of Atlanta, Peachtree, and now we're stopping traffic. And I put on my sunglasses, and it was at night, so there was no need for sunglasses. But to sort of block him out while he was driving, I just put on my sunglasses. Well, he goes to knock my sunglasses out of my face. And in doing so, right, you physically are contacting my face, regardless if it's the glasses hitting me or coming on. And I was like freaked. I opened the car door, I start running down the street, and he was like, "Oh my God, you're gonna get me arrested or whatever." But it was just like this understanding that more people, and often it's women, need to have that you don't have the right to violate my body space. I don't care how mad you are. I don't care how much you have to huff and puff. You touch me. Sometimes it starts with throwing a drink in your face or throwing a
Yeah.
plate in your face or knocking something down. But those are all signs that taken all the way out, it could end with you trying to take my life.
So I like to tell my survivors, had it been the first time you were with this person, they just walked up and slapped you, you'd have been done off the rip. Like there wouldn't have been do not pass go, do not collect $200. But I know in my situations and multiple others, it didn't start out that way. They now name it trauma bonding, where you go from violently arguing, well, I'm sorry, you go into the honeymoon phase where I'm sorry, everything's just great and wonderful, to the next time it's snatching your phone away, or to the next time, no, I'm not giving you money for the house bills. It's a whole culmination of abuses. It goes emotionally, mentally, up to physically, financially. It's a myriad of all these things, and it can flip and flop back from one to the other. And as a victim, these bonds are formed, these trauma bonds that make it very difficult to recognize and see the abuse that's happening. And it's not usually until afterwards, looking back, you're like, oh, that's it. You go A, B, C. That was it. That was it. All these check marks you hit through the abuse, but it's usually not till it's too late that you actually recognize the abuse and you try to break free. And then it's even harder to break free because this is years and years possibly of abuse that has just compounded.
You are so telling the truth. I mean, Mr. Shakur just says there are always warning signs. They are.
Mm-hmm.
They are. And,
Yes.
whether it's being love bombed so that you just overly, almost like, I know there's some victims that almost enjoy the post abuse time because they get so much
Mm-hmm.
attention, but it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous. And like you said, if I thought about that moment getting my glasses knocked off, and I'm ashamed to say that I continued to date the guy more than once. But I was like, the same, if a stranger came and did that to me, I would call the police. So why would I
Yeah.
allow someone close to me do what this person did? And I know we don't have much time. And like I said, I knew with talking to you, I could talk a lot. I mentioned that there are horrors of wrong information. And I mentioned that because I felt Friday could have been an example of a horror of wrong information. If in fact this happened, because we don't really know. So this part, I'm going to say we're going to use hypotheticals, right? Okay, Marie, we're going to use hypotheticals. I want to discuss a few myths or misinformation that sometimes victims, particularly of domestic violence, hear. One is that here in Florida, that if you get attacked by, like in this case, your husband, that you have to file the injunction in the same county where you kept residence with your husband. Is that true, Marie?
No, that is not true, Hope. You do not have to file in the county in which that happened. You can file in that county, and in all things, you should look at the safety aspect of it. Is it safer for you to file there, or is it safer for you to file elsewhere? And that's where legal counsel or even an advocacy center, refuge house is here, where you can reach out and say, hey, I need help. I need to know, the positives and negatives of where I file.
No, that is so good. We understand that the woman who lost her life last week, she was looking for help and she came back thinking that she had to file here in Taylor County, which is not true. She could have, if the violence happened in a different county, she could have filed there. If you only go because this is where you're escaping, you could file in that county as long as the court has a way to get back in touch with you. And Refuge House, that serves a lot of different places, but the director, who will hopefully be on later this week, that runs Refuge House has shelters, and we have people from all
Correct.
over the state who come to that shelter. It would be crazy to say they have to go back to the place of their harm and be more exposed to potentially bumping into someone, especially like a rural area like Perry, um, or a small town, and risk bumping into their abuser in order to file. That is not correct.
Well,
And
so, even on the Florida injunction form, it says where you live, where you reside. And if you take common me, I would think I had to go back to where I live, where the address on my driver's license is. Maybe that's something that needs to be looked at.
I think that is
Because even
so important.
school, you get different answers. You get totally different answers on where you can file at.
Now, for those of you who may not know what Marie is referencing, on the Florida Supreme Court website, as well as if you just Google Florida family forms, on each form that allows you without an attorney to file, say for divorce or child support, you can also get forms to file for restraining orders called injunctions. And every form has a cover sheet that gives you it's supposed to be a very easy to read understanding of the law and what you must do. What she's saying is that on those cover forms, they're not supposed to be giving you legal advice, just trying to explain the process. It says file where you live or file your residence. And there's some arguments as to what that even means. Because if I go to my grandma's house to get away from my abuser and I have no intention of really coming back, that's where I live, arguably. But how confusing that is to people who don't know the law. And I would hate to think that someone actually asked a lawyer and they didn't know. So some of the things that I wanted to talk about regarding how we can cure that type of misinformation is actually something that was mentioned by one of our commenters. Cynthia Henry says, would be great to have help centers set up in different cities that would have forms and assistance to help. Another form of social work are volunteers to help. What's really sad, Cynthia, is that we do. We have certified domestic violence centers, but in almost every county or region in the state of Florida. Here in Madison, Jefferson, and Taylor is Refuge House. And Refuge House has postage so many places, at 800 numbers, so many places, but a lot of people still don't know about it. I know here in Taylor County, Refuge House has big events. April, I think, is domestic violence, or no, October, domestic violence awareness. And I mean, they
Yeah.
do big events and the same people come. So I think we have to help more people to know, particularly now that with COVID-19, fewer offices are open to drop-ins, right? I know my office isn't. It has to be a special occasion. You get to call me. Down below, I've given people my phone number. And even if you're not in the counties noted, if you call me and I can help find who the domestic or sexual certified violence centers are in your area, I would do whatever I can to help you find what centers can assist you with shelter, potentially victim compensation, filing injunctions, helping you get connected to legal aid that could possibly help you file a divorce or file child modification for visitation. All those things my office can help facilitate, even if we can't represent you in that. And that's really important. As well as, I think Marie shows you in her presence, she's a victim advocate for sheriff's office. Almost every sheriff or police office either has a full-time victim advocate or they're knowledgeable about victim advocates. Ask Ask, call not the 911 number, but call your local sheriff or police station and ask them, do you have a victim advocate I can talk to? And you can talk to them without, I believe, filing a criminal report. Isn't that true, Marie? Marie.
Absolutely. I make
Yeah.
myself available. Yes, absolutely. Hope you are correct.
And so, and
Yes, I
when
do not require criminal.
you do not require that it be reported, which for a lot of people is the difference. And also, one thing that we'll be talking about later this week is that my what I do in legally intervening, it is getting involved with the court system. However, many people call and they're having to plan. They may not be ready today to file an injunction. They talk to me. I refer them to different advocates like Marie, or like the Refuge House advocates. And in that process of them getting counseling, when they're ready, if they decide, they can file something to legally intervene. So sometimes legal intervention is not the first step. In fact, it's probably better that you first seek to get help, because if that victim is not ready for a clean break, then this is a very dangerous option, because they'll have injunctions and they're still seeing the person, and then it's sort of confusing to the court potentially what's happening. Excuse me. Marie, another
Yeah. So
hard,
what
go ahead.
what we don't want to happen is someone who's on the fence about filing for the injunction and then be at the hearing drop it, to turn around a month or 2 months later when it's gotten to the point to where it is which to me all domestic violence situations are dangerous, period. There's no in between.
There's
But
no
it's
in
gotten to the
between.
point where they try to seek another injunction and the judge is less inclined to grant that injunction.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. Another horror of wrong information, and I'll just probably cover two more. And I thank you, Marie, for your time. And anything else that you think is very important for people to know about legal intervention, using their advocates, using a lawyer, using centers, definitely chime in. But another thing that I think, thankfully, I've never experienced it in Taylor County, but believe it or not, I experienced it in Leon County, which has way more resources. It's important for people to understand the process as much as they can. So even if, again, they're not ready to file an injunction, they should call different people like myself, or a victim advocate of a sheriff's office, a victim advocate of a police department, a victim advocate of a state attorney's office. Like I said, most of these people have access to victim advocates, so they can just talk and try to figure out things to understand the process. I mentioned earlier that if you file a petition, there's three things can happen. The judge may not grant it. The judge may give you a hearing and not a temporary injunction, or the judge may give you what we want is a temporary injunction, because typically once a person is notified that they're about to go to court for a restraining order, temperatures raise, right? In Leon County once, and thankfully only once, there was a situation where a person filed for a domestic violence injunction against their abusive husband. They did not get a temporary injunction. They got a court date, but the person didn't even know that they didn't get the injunction also. So they're at home with their abusive spouse, and the sheriff come and knock on the door to serve the abusive spouse. Now, you can imagine all the problems that can occur, even though thankfully there's a police officer there and he had to leave the house and there was a witness. And thankfully for that, but the client didn't, excuse me, I'm so sorry. It's the opposite. If that were to happen and the client was there and the police was there, the person would have to leave the house. What made this dangerous is that the person was served notice that there's a hearing, but they didn't have to leave the house. Thankfully, the police officer saw how my client was taken off guard, and she wasn't my client at the time. I ended up getting her eventually. They escorted her off, and she got in her car with her children and left. Thank you. That was a saving grace, but it could have happened differently. When someone is filing, they need to know what could happen. So often, and we'll talk about that later this week, hopefully with Deborah McGrew of Refuge House, often people will have it filed when they know the person or them themselves about to be out of town, or they'll be at work, or they'll be somewhere that's safe, or they may choose to go to a shelter, somewhere that's safe, so they're not in direct line of fire, okay? That's very, very important. And I call that a horror because we don't want anything to precipitate something worse. So for instance, if someone calls my office, thankfully I do all kinds of different law. I'm not going to call a voicemail or something and not know who else has access to that and say, hey, this is Attorney Hope
Right.
calling back for your domestic violence petition. Because if that's someone's family member who's the aggressor, I would have exposed them. And so there's different things like that. Can you think of some other sort of things that can go sideways when someone is looking for legal intervention if they get wrong information?
So when you are going to file, and even after you file, you can be put in a very dangerous situation. That's why safety planning, making sure you have a safe shelter to go to, all the correct information is very viable. It's very important. Um, but yeah, I mean, it can be a very dangerous situation. And that's why, we need all the resources as a survivor of domestic violence that's available so you don't become a victim of domestic violence. But absolutely, know your shelters, know your resources that's available. Um, and I know now with internet being at the tip of your fingers, if nothing else, and a lot of these safety websites, Refuge House, Coalition Against Domestic Violence websites, there are escape buttons on it where you just tip a one button and you are immediately taken off that page. But you have to have all these safety nets lined up. And that's why reaching out to your domestic violence shelters, reaching out to your sheriff's office, police departments, making sure that you have all the correct, wonderful information to keep you and your family safe while you're getting out of an abusive situation is very, very much key in your survival.
And you know what, Marie, I'm so glad that you work at a sheriff's office because another and last horror I'm going to talk about wrong information. And I realize I'm saying this with a grain of salt because just like a lawyer gives advice, and sometimes my clients retell that advice that I supposedly given them in however way they colorfully remember it, and sometimes they misstate it. I know sometimes officers and police officers and sheriffs deputies give advice, the right information, but to the person receiving the information, they totally get it wrong. But I've heard in too many instances throughout all the counties, big and small, that I've dealt with, that sometimes law enforcement is also giving wrong information about whether or not they can arrest someone who has an injunction, or whether or not someone has to stay at the house, or did they have to arrest both people or not at all. Now I know because of the large amount of discretion police are given and law enforcement are given, it doesn't mean they're wrong, in fact, as to their authority. But sometimes I have clients who are like, well, I was told that I couldn't do anything about it. I just would suggest, both because as a lawyer we can make mistakes, as law enforcement we may not have all the
Yes.
information, and even as you said, Marie, you can look and see on one place it says this, and then another place it says this. That anyone who's needing help, go to one more than one source, because you may not find relief, you may even actually find rejection, but sometimes people get it wrong.
Right.
Sometimes
Absolutely. You're
people
absolutely
get it
right. There's
wrong.
misinformation. There is misinformation out there. And if you're ever in doubt or unsure, please, just like you would go to your medical doctor if you needed a second opinion and you go somewhere else, do it the same with law, with legal information. Any information you receive, if you are seconds of doubting it, always get information from another source.
Yeah. And even if you're not doubting it, just try to
Yeah,
get more
it's never
information.
hurt.
Be hungry for your life, be hungry for your safety. And when you've done all you can, you've done all you can, but protect yourself. And I just pray that anyone out here who's hearing this, who knows someone who may need to know this information, please write down my number, 850-544-9578. I serve in the counties of Taylor, Madison, and Jefferson. And also I have cases in Lafayette and Leon County with the Florida Coalition against Domestic Violence Injunction for Protection project. Actually, this project is funded by a national grant that is involved with VAWA and VOCA and all these different anti-violence type legislation that came, actually, interesting enough, on the heels of the O.J. Simpson's matter. So that's why it's not even important how much you make. This is not domestic violence hurts rich people, poor people, often anybody, black, white, men, women, children, adults. So there's nothing that there's there's no disqualification that you could have to not receive my services unless it is not domestic violence, it is not stalking, dating violence, or sexual violence. Like, and sometimes I get referrals and it's really a criminal damage to property issue, or maybe some other type of violence, but it's not in those parameters. So I can't represent you for my grant, but still contact me because and still
Yeah.
contact people like Marie, because we will try to help you figure it out. We will try to help you figure it out. Marie has been so amazing. Both she and I have been working from home often. And even if you can't get into centers, people are taking your phone calls. We are figuring it out. There's a lot of things Marie and I want to help with is one, making it more clear what the process is, making the forms clearer, but also there are things like needing a notarization that different counties are different. Right now it's harder for people to get things notarized. So we're figuring it out. And there are people like me all over the state of Florida. And there's people, they're advocates, victim advocates like Marie all over. You just have to look for them. And we're going to do more. When I say we, Marie and I are committed to doing more to make sure people know what resources are available, and trying to get creative in this COVID-19 where people are not just able to just go in a courthouse or go in a public library or go in a building and see our flyers. We're going to try to get more people involved. That's why tomorrow's show, I'm going to be dealing with spiritual intervention. And I'm particularly going to be talking and directing it to the people of faith, pastors and ministers who are often the first counselors to people who are dealing with
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence. They may not say domestic violence, but they're like, oh, I'm in an issue with my husband or my wife. And there's certain things that they should be mindful of. Also, I want to talk to people of faith who are making decisions like getting legal intervention and other things, and they may feel like it's against their religious conviction. And hopefully,
Right.
um, we'll also get to talk about what that means and how it impacts, because there's just a different form and a different type of way. I feel, and Marie's experience and other professionals in victim advocacy have seen that works well with people who are dealing with domestic violence or any of these issues of violence when they come and seek guidance from spiritual authority. Because actually, you want to get a good lawsuit, have someone who's not trained in victim advocacy or counseling giving advice that leads to the death of a parishioner. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about spiritual intervention, and it's not just the praying kind, although I believe in that. Um, but we're going to be talking about ways that you can also be a support. And I think churches, if they got more involved and got information, they could be a source for more victims to run to for information. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about physical intervention, like literally how to get people out the grasp of domestic violence. And we're going to be focusing a lot on shelter operations, but also some practical ways that people can divide or separate themselves from an abusive situation and find safety. Okay. So, Marie, I'm going to let you have the last word. Is there anything else regarding escaping violence, legal intervention, your work as a victim advocate, or even any issues outstanding you feel like needs to be made easier for victims to get help? Anything closing you want to say?
Yeah. So, what I would like to say is we have to be each other's voice. We have to stand for the ones that aren't able to stand, you know, and it could be as simple as just your friend not knowing, not being aware of what's all out there. Hey, if nothing else, be that voice for that person. You know, they may not know what resources are out there, but if you know, a lot of people aren't aware all the services that Refuge House provides. You know, a lot of the times I'll talk to people and they'll think, well, I don't need to leave my house, you know, because a lot of times they think that Refuge House is just for sheltering needs. But they have a wealth of resources that can get people in touch with a lot of wonderful stuff, including you and me at the sheriff's office level. So, yeah, we just need to make sure that our information as service providers is being put out there so that people are aware that we're here. Hey, we want to help you. Whatever means necessary, however you need that assistance, we're here.
Wow.
And every domestic violence situation is serious. It's dangerous.
Is super dangerous. Now, I know I put my number at the bottom, which I'm with the IFP project, 850-544-9578. After the show, I am going to post on Hope more information for Refuge House. I see Brandy's commented. Thank you so much, Brandy. Brandy, if you're still watching, can you put the phone number for Refuge House up? Because I would definitely love to post that as well. But like I said, I am an attorney, so I can assist in legal representation. I can assist also for violations, because often it's not before. Sometimes people go ahead and get their injunction and then their batter or their abuser violates and they feel like there's nothing they can do. I can help in filing for show cause hearings or filing to request that it be reviewed by the state attorney's office for criminal charges. Also, I've represented victims who have been accused of domestic violence in order to manipulate the system to go against them. So we do a lot of different things. And like I said, we realize that this is not easy. You know, these are not easy decisions. But reach out, because that one conversation may give you strength for another conversation, right? Give you strength to make that one last conversation. And we represent, and we've represented parents whose children were being sexually abused. We've represented, and I say we because it's a team effort many times. We've represented older people who've been abused by their children on drugs. And like I said, interesting enough, I've had quite a few men, older men, who've had, they have some young person around them. And, recently, I also represented a disabled woman whose son, was abusing her. So we do a lot. We do a lot, but we're here for you. So please reach out. Please reach out. Let's see. Okay, Brandy did another one. Thank you, Brandy, for saying thank you. And we want to be an advocate and ally. And I just wanted to say thank you to also Cynthia Henry. She said blessings. I wanted to share that with you, Marie. Now let me tell you how dedicated Marie is. And I'm coming off. Am I doing this right? How dedicated Marie is. Marie is recovering and has had some health challenges, and she will still be working hard. Like literally, we were supposed to be going to court, and this chick was like, oh yeah, something's happening. And she described it. I'm like, you didn't go to the hospital. But that's how serious she takes what she does and the people that she represents. And that's why not only Marie, but the people I work with at Refuge House, Brandy Turner, Pam Moore, they are very serious. The advocates from the Taylor County Sheriff's Office, the state attorney's office, Ms. Michelle Hinkle. There's so many great people. And I also got to give a shout out to Crystal Grambling of the Jefferson County Clerk's Office. That woman was on vacation in Panama City on a Friday after 5 o'clock, calling me saying, I'll do what I can to get this injunction filed. I also have to say thank you, Selena Johnson in Taylor County. There's a lot of good people who work really hard to do the best we can. If you don't know who in your community can help you, find out. Don't give up. You can escape this violence. We'll do what we can to help you, but understand that you are well able to end this cycle of violence and you're worth it. You are worth it. We're praying and we love you. Thank you so much, Marie, for everything you're doing, and to help. And did you want to give your phone number out? I didn't know if you could or not.
Yes, yes, absolutely. 850-997-0510 or 850-408-6377. And Refuge House, my favorite number, 681-2111.
681-2111.
Yep, the Refuge House. That's their 24-hour crisis
You know
hotline.
what? I'm ashamed that I don't have that memorized. Is that 850? Is that 850?
850. Yep, 850.
681-2100. Okay. I was
21,
asking this. What? What'd you say?
2111.
21.
2111.
Thank you. Yeah, I went to law school, but I'm not good with numbers sometimes. I'm going to put that up. Okay, come on now. Yes, thank you. I should have known that you knew the number. Yes, I'm going to show that as my Refuge House, 850-681-2111. What I'm going to do right now, Marie, and feel free to opt out. I know you're a believer also, and I'm not saying that you're representing any type of resource other than just giving your information, but I just wanted to pray real quick before we end our time. Hope More is a media forum, but we love the light of God, and I just want to pray over anyone out there who may need additional strength as we close out our time. Lord, I thank you so much for your guidance, for your protection. I pray for anyone out there, God, who needs to escape violence, that you would make ways and open doors, God. Maybe it's a person who works at a restaurant, or a friend at a church, or a stranger on the end of a hotline. I pray that they would reach out. I pray that you give them courage. I pray that you protect them. And Lord, many times people who are batterers also were abused. And I ask that if there's anyone listening who may find themselves not able to deal with their anger in a proper manner, that they would get help. I ask you that you would draw them to conviction and to change, from the oldest to the youngest, from the richest to the poorest, from those who feel the furthest away from you to those who feel like they walk with you daily. I ask that you would show them that you are there with them, guiding them, and that you love them and that they're worth it. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thank you so much. I think she's working over there. Are you working? You're not in trouble. You need to work. I need to work too. So we've been here for over an hour. Thank you guys for joining us for lunch. God bless you. We love you and we mean it. Thank you, Marie, for being our special guest. And we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.